All right. All right, Tim. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Good, man. How's your face?
Not bad.
Cool.
So
looks good.
The beard. So you brought us the movie Ravenous.
I did.
With Guy Pearce and Robert Carlyle. Great actors. Great cast.
Guy Carlyle and Robert Pearce.
Gobbard. Fruitfin.
Wow.
What did you put in this water?
Yeah.
Anyway, so this was your choice. Why is this a special choice for you? Why?
Well, because
the foreign actors of Goggle, Foof, and Ragan. While you're drinking, so you know.
Well,
well played.
The reason it's special is because I'm just kidding. All right, so obviously I'm kidding.
Comedies in threes, folks. Start again. Just kidding.
Not quite. All right, the reason this is special to me is because it was literally one of my favorite movies when I was growing up. It was one of the very first VHSs I ever bought, actually. I absolutely love this movie. Like, it was just one of those movies that was kind of special to me as a kid. It's fairly violent, and it came out, I think, 99. So I was about 17, 18 when it came out. You know, I mean, that's a good age for a good violent movie. Yeah. But here's the thing about this. It was fairly taboo in general because there's not very many movies that are made about things like this. So
you're not going to tell them, just let them watch it? Is what it is?
I don't know. I mean, what am I going to say? Yeah. I mean, do people get eaten in this movie? They do.
Yes.
Do they get eaten by people? Yes, they do. Okay, so this has a story. This has a story. Okay, so break it down. Spoiler alert. Bow! I got you the spoiler alert before we did the spoiler this time. How rare is that? Very rare.
This is our 4th episode.
So it's rare. So we've always done the spoiler and then the spoiler alert. So this is the first time. All right, the water's getting to me. I don't know. Anyway, so essentially, I gave the spoiler alert, right?
Yes.
Just making sure.
It's down there.
Got it. All right. So the main character, Guy Pearce. So I can't remember. Is it the Mexican-American?
Yes.
Okay, so it's the Mexican-American War, and he's fighting in this battle, and
they're losing.
Losing terribly, and he decides that he's going to play dead, actually, so he doesn't get shot. And they pick his body up and they throw him in the pile of bodies, and he lays there for many hours with his commanding officer's half-shot-off head in his face and his blood dripping down his throat. After a while of this, something changes inside him, he says. He dragged himself out from under the bottom of the pile, and he went and single-handedly takes the
enemy camp.
Yeah, the enemy camp. But he's honest, and he tells his commanding officers how he took the camp and everything. So they kind of treat him as, you're a hero, but technically for letting all your people die and not fighting in the battle.
Yeah, you're a coward. So
you're a coward. So we're gonna banish you to this fort out in the middle of nowhere in Northern California. So he travels out in the fort, and this is back in the frontier times. If this movie were set in Disneyland, it would be in Frontierland. You know what I mean? They sent him out to Frontierland, and he goes out there and he meets Jeffrey Jones. So he was the principal from
Ferris Bueller.
From Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, great actor.
Yes, absolutely. And
Amadeus too.
Oh no shit, that's right, yeah. And so he meets a fair amount of really great actors, really cool people at this little place.
Very caricaturesque.
Yeah,
characters.
Very cool. Wonderful. I liked it. Yeah, David Arquette was in it. He plays the town drunk stoner, or whatever. Peyote, self-medicated guy, you know. And then there is Neil McDonough, who I really like a lot. He's the soldier, and
he's in a lot of stuff. Good actor.
Yeah, great act. I really like him, actually. And then, Robert Carlyle flies into camp at a certain point, and it just kind of becomes this weird thing of hey, there may be some people trapped in the wilderness out in the mountains, and we need to go and see if they're still out there. So this group of people decide to get up and go out.
Because they started trying to survive eating each other.
Yes, right? Robert Carlyle comes in and tells them the story about how when they were out there, they started dying and eating each other, and he wasn't sure who was left alive out there. He deemed himself a coward, but he had to get out of there, and he found them, and now he needs them to go back and see what's going on, And
good premise.
Great premise, and so they all go out to this spot in the middle of the woods, and they go into this cave, and they go down to see who's left alive in this cave, and a bunch of craziness ensues from that point forward in the movie. and it does have to do with cannibalism, and it does have to do with people eating each other and then getting their powers. That's what we haven't even said that yet. Like, this is what the movie essentially is like when you eat someone, you gain their like essence, their life power.
It's based on the native
the Wendigo.
Wendigo, yeah.
Based on the
I like that is in this when I was watching it is kind of they have all these different kind of representations of it. And even like, well, this was me. I kind of read deeper into it when I was talking to you before. And I'm like, I don't necessarily know if that, was the underlying case that the director had. But it's like, the cool thing is, it's almost allegorical in that way. You could read into that based on what goes on. And it's like, I don't want to necessarily give spoilers, but it's because of one at the end. I was like, oh, that's very... Mm-hmm. It made it intriguing, you know what I mean? Like, you just like, okay, this is...
Right, and there's a constant theme here, and I know we talk a lot about consistency in filmmaking when we're talking about these, and that's something that we find to be appealing, as audience members, people who watch movies, we find a consistent theme or characters who do a certain thing or a storyline that leads itself to something necessarily needs to be done over and over again in a film. Consistency matters.
Definitely.
And in this film, they did that a lot. They did a lot of you have to eat someone to either stay alive or have enough strength to do a certain thing.
Yes.
Or whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah. And I like that about it.
Yeah.
And there was definitely kind of cause and effect, consequence versus,
Yes.
And like I was thinking, you're talking about consistency. I just had this image in my head. It's like kind of what we don't want in a movie is there to be a straight line hitting a wall to another straight line. It's more like a roller coaster. Mm-hmm. You can have your ups and downs in the movies, but as long as it flows into that next moment, you're not going to break and go, oh, I'm out of this movie.
Right.
This is stupid.
One of the best things that I loved about Ravenous is that it didn't waste any time.
Yeah. Like in Guy Pearce, there's a specific scene. Like, it kind of threw me off. I'm like, no, that didn't happen. And then it didn't. He's sitting there, like, looking out the window and he's thinking. And then this just thing happens. You're like, what?
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, no, that couldn't have happened.
When he did
and it
that
didn't.
thing.
So it was like,
yes.
But like you said, it's like, it's a specicic made for, every shot was
it drives it home.
Really
story.
Good.
Yeah, and that's like I said, that's one of the reasons this movie was special to me.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I didn't realize why I was enjoying this film so much. I just knew that it was cool. It was kind of hitting a taboo subject, which I was like, ooh, that's kind of, interesting. Because I had an affinity for horror from when I was probably in my, like, early teens, probably like 12, 13. I kind of started to enjoy horror. Before that, it kind of scared me. You know what I mean? Like, the Nightmare on Elm Street when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street 2, like, I lost my shit when I saw that school bus, like, on the two pillars, like, at the beginning of the movie, and Freddy was on the bus, and you can't go out of the bus. You can't go anywhere, and I was like, I think I was having an anxiety attack at like 8 years old when I saw
this
that.
This one doesn't give you that. This one's more horrific, I would say, than horror.
But what I'm saying is that I started to enjoy horror around 12, 13 years old. So coming up with that, and you're right, this is totally not that. This is not a horror film. This is more of a very dark and gritty.
It's like a black
horror. It's not even a horror. It's like comedy, a dark and gritty. Nah, it's not a comedy. It has some cheeky elements in it. Yeah. Robert Carlyle does that very well in general. Him and Jeffrey Jones bring an element both, and David Arquette.
David Arquette was good in that.
Funnily enough, obviously.
Well, everybody almost seemed like they had their kind of little one-liners of their silly quirks.
Even the soldier.
Yeah.
Even Neil McDonough.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But and so that left you almost Guy Pearce.
He had his funny lines of poking, fun of the coward who just got to their camp with Guy Pearce,
But it was that kind of, that, what am I looking at? That contrast between Guy Pearce. That's what almost made it right.
Yeah, and he played it so, oh my God. And he was so like, you're absolutely right. I didn't think about that either, because he plays this so, like, this character that's been distorted by an experience that he did not like. And he recognized it for what it was. It was doing something to him that wasn't natural.
So the interesting thing is...
you ride this character... Wait, check this out. So you ride... Just to play on what you said, you ride this character who's more than a straight man. He's the guy you're feeling the anxiety of the situation all the way through the movie through this guy, and all around him are people making light of the fact that they're having to eat other people or being eaten or may.
Right.
You know, the situation may fall in a certain way, and you're right. You had this it had this really weird energy to it.
Yeah.
Surrounding that movie because of that. Because of the characters.
He almost holds the like morality in his hand.
He totally does. 100%.
Because he's going through the same thing, but he's asking the questions nobody else is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you have other characters that are just like, oh, that's voodoo, man. Like, I'm out here.
And then there's a lot of characters in the film. And then there's characters in the film that have no idea what's going on. That they're just they're in the mix.
Completely oblivious.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Completely oblivious to what's happening. It totally worked.
It worked.
You know?
Yeah.
I liked that. I liked that about the film. The characters itself, the dynamic between the ones who weren't oblivious but were kind of caricatures of themselves, and then each of the characters who were oblivious even were kind of that too.
Yeah.
But it really was like, and then you had like the real evil, you know, who was almost indifferent to what he had become.
Sure.
It wasn't like there was no remorse, but there also at the same time wasn't like this huge, like, I love this. It was more like, and he even says it. He says it, eat to live, not live to eat. You know what I'm saying? And if he was like, it's more of a necessity. And he says, we don't kill indiscriminately.
Right.
You know what I mean? He goes, we'll be very selective about who we kill.
Yeah.
You know, no one with families. You know, there was a very strange and twisted morality to even him. And it wasn't, like I said, you know, somebody said, you know, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for the indifference of good men, or for good men to do nothing, or something along those lines.
True. Yeah.
So this guy had literally, on an internal level, submitted to his own indifference for the evil that he had experienced, maybe out of necessity at the beginning.
Sure.
But now that he had experienced it, was like totally willing to welcome it as a lifestyle.
But still for necessity, but a twisted version of it.
How necessary though? Once you've done it and you're back to healthy, not that he relied on it.
True, but
he could have chosen to go the other way, like Guy Pearce. He chose because it gave him that virility, because it made him. He was sick. He had gotten the cancer. Oh, that's right. He did explain that, like, if he didn't eat it, the cancer may come back.
Yeah,
that's what it was. So he wanted to stay.
And the
healthy.
the idea technically of the unknown of like, if I could do this forever,
I could live forever. Yeah.
You know? Because there's a very interesting line as somebody says, you know, like, you know, this is taboo to talk about the Wendigo, but you guys eat the body and blood of Jesus, you know,
every Sunday,
church, you know?
Yeah.
And I just thought, that's an interesting, like, take. Like, you know, I get it. I'm like, that's kind of, So I thought they had little elements in there that kind of were like, oh, that's pretty clever. That's kind of neat. And not really to spoil it, but like as they're going through this, like he makes this kind of stew, you know, the villain, right? He wants it to taste good, right? So,
of course,
a little salt. But I was just talking about this. Is very interesting. Is there is this indifferent general who like is the guy that sent Guy Pearce out?
Yeah.
And kind of a spoiler, but I just want to get to the point of why I was saying it's kind of interesting is. Kind of near the end, he gets wrapped up in this and he sees, oh, stew. Kind of hungry. So he takes a bite and he goes, oh. And then you think, you know, I was thinking about this, like, oh, okay, he's a general. He's now, it's the essence of like eating flesh or just like the ravenousness of war, you know. We don't care, you know, whereas the one guy said, we're not going to kill indiscriminately, you know, we're going to pick and choose. Well, in a way, in war, they kind of do that. Sometimes, you know, if you think about it, well, not the women and children don't palm the towns, go after the soldiers or whatever. But it's like it's not that the flesh is actually doing it, but it's the heart of man. That's kind of what I was saying. So like the representation was there based on the food, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting take on that.
You know, because then the guy Pearce is like, I don't want war. I'm a coward. I don't want to be a part of war.
He doesn't want any part of hurting
I don't want
other
the
people.
bloodshed. I don't want.
It traumatized him to great lengths when he saw that at the very beginning of the movie. Dude, he was good in that, man.
He was real good in that.
He was really good. And as he got more and more sick towards the end of the movie, You know, it was like, dude, he played that great,
Oh, yeah.
dude. And Robert Carlyle got more and more
he's
clean
just
cut
amazing.
and more like strong. Robert Carlyle's character looked stronger. They had this switch throughout the movie. You know, Robert Carlyle starts off as this weak, frail character who comes into frame, and Guy Pearce is this strong character who, by default, because of this experience, has this virility, and he's coming off of this thing and doesn't want it.
Yeah.
And this guy is coming out of this place, and they're totally take this thing, and by the end of the movie, Guy Pearce is in this completely decrepit state.
Yeah.
You can see it in his face, and Guy Pearce has this air about him, like he can take on the world.
Exactly.
Robert Carlyle has this thing, he can take on the world. You know what I mean? Like,
very cool.
They've taken taken each other's places, but by choice. At the beginning of the movie, it seemed as if their chance had led them to their current meeting.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the movie, by choice, they had almost swapped places.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying?
And then it
Very
just kind of
cool.
goes. It kind of goes in that idea of just like, you know, some people by choice are, you know, and this is the title of the movie, Ravenous, like war, bloodthirsty. You know what I mean? That's in essence what it is. That's set in a war, you know, et cetera.
Yeah.
So what were your favorite moments?
Okay, so I do have a favorite moment in the film, and I do have a couple of favorite moments, but I also have a favorite character as well, and I'd like to touch on that. I loved Neil McDonald's character, the soldier.
Sure.
So good, so well played, so everything from him, you know, like standing in the middle of the river, in the freezing river, you know, doing his thing, to like taking charge and running after this dude to try and kill him through this thing. You know what I mean? Like everything that he was in that movie was like cool as shit.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a cool ass character. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
As a kid too, I was like, that's a bad mother, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, that was cool.
Not
you know
afraid
what I mean?
to just go.
Nah, he was getting it. And like, I like characters like that who aren't afraid to make decisions and go in and, you know, run into the fire if they need to. And that leads me to my favorite moment. There's one of my favorite moments in the film, had everybody there, and it was when he went down. Him and Guy Pearce go down into the cave.
Oh yeah.
And and spoiler alert, this is the one that you don't want to hear if you haven't seen the movie yet. When they go down into the cave and they realize that he said how many people were in the party, and he counted all the people, and he realized that all of them had been eaten except him. And then he realized that he was the one that had eaten everybody, and he's running out of the cave trying to tell them he ate everyone, like, kill him, shoot him, and he can't hear him because they're too deep in the cave, and they're running out, and Robert Carlyle is like having this maniacal moment of like, he starts digging in the sand in his hands right by the river, you know, and he's just fucking digging, and he stands up for a moment, and he like looks at the guy, the priest dude, you know, and he clears his hair away from his face, and he with his gloves, you know, and he walks back, and he turns around for a minute, and he's like, and he reaches down and takes this giant hunting knife, you know what I mean, and he's just like, and he like runs up and just guts the boy, you know what I mean, like, you know, and then and that's when it turned around. Now it's pretty funny actually, and that also leads me to one of my favorite aspects of the movie. The music was awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
It was so weird, but it just worked.
Dude, so good, right?
So yeah,
and
I was thinking the same thing.
Leading up, so like in that time that I'm just explaining, there was this like really cool and off-putting like some backwoods harmonica or fiddle or something. You just can't really put your head on what instrument it is. It's just off somehow, you know, and
like
then
the adrenaline and then your mind snapping.
It's trippy. It's cool. And then it like after he guts the guy and the priest is standing, he's scared. And the guy's like, and he bends down and he's got the knife in his hand. He goes, and all the music stops and he goes, run. and then the fiddle music starts. The banjo, and it shows him like running through the wilderness away from this maniac. You know what I'm saying? It's like the music was so fucking good in that, and that whole scene with them down in the cave, and then coming up like, you know, and him trying to get to them in time, and then when he gets up there, the Indian the guide's been killed. He had the axe to the back, you know what I mean, or caught the axe to the stomach.
No,
he got
shot.
He got shot. You know, that's right. What's his name? You know, Jeffrey Jones is laying there, got gutted. The priest is off somewhere, running away. You can hear him in the you know.
He looks like Jesse James from The Predator with his guts.
Oh, dude, it was just busted open, dude. Like, And yeah, he goes, and they didn't go off to find the guy and try and help the priest dude, you know? It's like, it's just a good, dude, that whole part, to me, was like very epic. Like that whole scene.
But here's the crazy thing, right? Like you said, no shot was wasted because it just beat per beat.
Dude,
per beat,
on point.
Per beat. You're already in the movie. So you're like, oh, okay, dang, we're already here. Like, when you're thinking there's going to be more development, no, they developed it already. So you're already with it.
You're there. And then when you get there, it's like, hold on tight, because it doesn't really stop from that point forward. And it has, like you said, it's a roller coaster. It's got points where it calms down for a bit, where it has to, because of the story.
Before we go up to...
It's got to take it time for, this little bit of character development, because you need to show, at a certain point, you actually need to show time passing.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So at that point, you actually need to slow it down just a little, at least for that little point. But man, dude, I really enjoyed that movie, dude. You know, I liked David Arquette's character's relationship with the Indian sister and the guy. Like, I liked how they had a real warm bond between each other, you know what I mean? Like, even though she was kind of like, she kind of looked out for him, you know what I mean? And it was simple. It was a simple relationship.
Yeah. As quirky as it was, it's like, no, this is realistic, like in that time period.
100%. If
like,
for that time.
I know when we were watching it, you're like, can you imagine living in that time period? Like,
dude.
Wearing furs, hiking, and doing all this crazy stuff. Like, you don't think like, oh, my life is bad. You just have to be
This
there.
is what I do. This is life. This is how life is.
Yeah.
How crazy is that, dude? And that's another thing of why I love that movie, because I love mountains, forests, the Pacific Northwest is very near and dear to me. I've gone. I mean, my family is
the scenery and just the locations of the movie is gorgeous.
It's incredible. So you get these amazing visuals with great period piece, awesome acting.
Yeah.
A storyline that doesn't let up, which means they don't waste any time moving you forward. I'll say, I feel like maybe the scene where they were underground, where they were under the pile, him and the soldier.
Yeah.
It actually had one of the most poignant scenes in it. When he was speaking to the dead soldier's body, and he was angry with him because he had to eat him.
Yeah.
Do you remember that scene?
Talking Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce.
Yeah.
Guy Pearce. Neil McDonough had passed away, and Guy Pearce knew that he was gonna die if he didn't eat this guy, if he didn't eat some of the flesh from this man's body, and he was angry with the soldier for dying and leaving him alone to have to do this.
Right.
And he had this moment of breakdown where he's like, he's literally having a conversation with this dead body, and he's angry and he's yelling at him, or he's having this moment, which was, like I said, one of the most poignant actual moments in the film, without being interrupted by a cheeky, humorous line coming out of somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because then it's very interesting that you brought that up. I didn't kind of realize this, when you think about it afterwards. Because then it seems in the next moments after that, paranoia strikes in, and then, Guy Pearce finds out and tells other people. And then there's that question of, you did it then out of necessity, why not do it out of longevity?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like there's these moments.
That's a morality question.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's these moments in the movie that they stop and they're a bit like, would you? Could you? Why would you?
There's the consistency theme, though, coming back in. You're going to have to do this. Another character is going to have to make a choice at this part of the film to do what we're talking about, to address the main question in the movie. I love that about this movie.
And then
don't let up on that.
The other question too, and like I said, I don't necessarily know if the director was thinking this, but it made me think of this. Like, Guy Pearce himself says, "I'm a coward," but then you go through the movie like, no, you're not. Right. You're not a coward at all. Right. You're just, you're more of a moral guy. Like, you don't want to do this, unnecessary killing, unnecessary feeding, or whatever you want to call it, because it's just like, it's not. Right. None of it's for you, and that's true to some people more. But are you going to survive? Are you going to get through it? Are you going to live? Are you going to, make ends meet and do whatever? And he finds out that he does. So he's not, in essence, he kind of proves some way that he isn't a coward, which is cool. And just like all these different levels of this movie, as I'm thinking about it more and more, I'm like, yeah, it's very cool. I like when movies do that, you know.
Dig it.
Totally.
Dig it, bro.
So I think we kind of answered too. Is the next question was why it worked as a movie, and I think we kind
Totally,
of answered that
dude.
with
Well, yeah,
the other ones,
absolutely,
really.
man. Absolutely. I think, you know, obviously I said my piece about why I think it works as a movie.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, why I think it works as a good movie too, dude. Like, why I enjoyed it so much as a kid. You know, it's funny, like, sitting here talking about it with you and, like, actually, like, analyzing it makes me realize why. It helps me realize why I enjoyed it as, you know, when I was younger. And also, it also highlights some of these things for the next time I watch it. You know, for the next person I sit and watch it with. You know,
True.
I'm not going to sit there and talk about it, but something that I might make mental note of. Like, wow, like, that was really well done.
Yeah.
You know, something I can appreciate.
And that's the difference between, you know, a good movie and a bad movie is can you engage? Can you watch it again? Can you ask more questions the second time you've watched it? You know what I mean?
Totally.
And, yeah. So.
Well, that, you know, I'll say too. I think you're absolutely right about that. Except I think there are exceptions to that rule. Like,
Of course.
there are some movies that are just one-time watches. That are good ass movies.
Sure.
That are like one-time watches. Like,
I see. I agree with you. It's kind of what I call them a popcorn film, or that's a favorite. You know, not that I made that phrase up. Or
example,
whatever, but.
fun movie, popcorn movie, great movie, iconic even.
Really?
One-time watch. Scream.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I don't need to watch that again.
Couldn't you,
know what I mean?
couldn't
Like,
you say
that's
that
no
about
need.
most horror movies, though?
No, hell no. There's some horror movies I'll watch over and over. And here's why I enjoy horror, though, above most other genres. Not really above. Here's just why I enjoy horror. Horror is creative. Horror gives me original stories that I don't get in a romance, that I don't get in action film, that I don't get in a comedy. Dude, your comedies nowadays are very similarly crafted.
They suck.
You're not getting a lot of original stories.
Yeah.
For instance, like the movie Tag came out recently. Like, solid movie. You know, not the greatest movie that's ever seen. Definitely not a bad movie. It was I think it was a good movie, dude. I enjoyed it because here's why I enjoyed it. Because it was a fun ride with a twisty, different story. Grown men playing tag as adults. Cool. That's something I've never seen before. I want to watch that.
And the biggest thing, though, is with story is the reason why I do tend to agree with you slightly on this about the horror thing is it's more clever, but it's because of the contrast. Light versus dark, good versus evil. The contrast is big.
That's bigger in horror.
So the idea is in comedy, they have to make contrast. In some comedies, it's
right,
junk.
yeah.
Or in action movies, it's repeatable.
In horror, you get a much bigger payoff as far as
Right.
tension and tension release goes, as more so than any other genre aside from action, maybe.
Yeah, and that's why Ravenous, it had good contrast.
I like the way it played and the way it didn't pronounce itself as a horror film.
Right.
You know, even though it
Technically, it is.
it technically kind of is, and it didn't take itself too seriously when it had to be.
Yeah.
The violence was so over the top in certain points. What that is doing is it's very Tarantino-esque in the fact that, like, we're gonna go a little extreme here to show you that we're making a movie.
Right.
We're just making a movie. You know what I'm saying? We're not taking it too seriously. We are telling you a story about some pretty fucking crazy shit.
Yeah.
But we're going to have a little fun with it. You know, I think they did well with that. With the violence wasn't too crazy at the end.
No, it really
the
wasn't.
last. I mean, it was. There were some gnarly parts. I'd say there were some
Sure.
fucking eating people. You know what I'm saying? But they didn't go. It wasn't like a movie that you're like, oh my god, I can't watch this. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude, there's movies like that. You know,
a bad pun again. I did this last episode, but it was tasteful violence.
So let us know what you guys thought about it, you guys. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, you guys.